will be a burden on every single business and individuals throughout the country.
Louise Upston.
I move that the question be now put.
I'll hear from Stuart Nash.
Very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. O'Connor brings up a very good point, actually, and I'd like to reiterate on that a little bit more. He was talking about, we're on part 4 here, which is enforcement and other matters, and clause 73, which is offence relating to disclosing information acquired during inspection of records or search. Now, if I may, Mr. Chair, it says here, a person commits an offence if the person, except in the performance of a person's duties, knowingly discloses any information acquired during inspection of records or an authorised search. Now, there are two things here that strike me. First of all, the fine for an individual is $25,000. That's a lot of money. Of that, there's no doubt. For a corporate, it's $100,000. But to take Mr. O'Connor's point a step further, I would have thought that a clause like this may, in fact, stop people from coming forward and saying, Shivers, look, I've done wrong here. Shivers. I've done wrong here. Yep, I've committed an offence under this Act. I'm really sorry. Let me sort of cough up, pay the charges, and let's get on with it. With that sort of regime, there's a bit of scope. We talked about it in part 2, I think it was, Mr. Chair, where a ruck inspector had the ability to actually waive the fee. But what it's saying here is if a person knowingly discloses information during the course of an authorised search or an inspection, then they're liable for a fine of $25,000. And I would have thought that's a very good incentive to actually keep quiet, zip up, shut up. I would have thought that if, in fact, with this in place, it discourages people from owning up. There are a couple of other points I'd like to make. There are two clauses, clause 71, one clause, clause 71, that lays out a defence for a person caught avoiding these road user charges. I agree with clause 1, clause 2, but clause 3, it's quite interesting. It says here, part 3, in a defence and proceedings for an offence of operating a road user charge vehicle, ruck charge, without a properly working distance recorder, A, B, C, a properly working distance recorder was fitted to the ruck vehicle or the distance recorder fitted to the ruck vehicle was repaired as soon as practical after the commission of an alleged offence. Now, as soon as practical, again, is one of these very subjective tests which is hard to measure. And I'm wondering if, in fact, Mr. Chair, or the Minister, who won't answer these questions because he's busy reading about Auckland manufacturing and how it's probably slowing down, but, Mr. Chair, as many of us know, as many of us who work in the provinces and the rural sector know, these trucks are on the road 24/7. The drivers, of course, change, but these trucks, well, the truck drivers work long hours, but these trucks are a piece of machinery where you've got to get, your return on your investment. So what does as soon as practical mean? I suspect that may end up being defined by the court if you have got a fine of $25,000 for an individual or $100,000 for a corporation. Because if you're a logging truck and coming out of Wairua or Napier Road, you are going 24/7. So as soon as practical may be, well, is it next time you stop for petrol? Or is it the Sunday after it's committed? Or is it the 20th of the month when you stop to pay your bills? I'm just not sure in this context what as soon as practical means. And I'm sure that a smart lawyer will probably be able to wheedle the way through that. The other one is clause 72, Mr. Chair. Power to issue a search warrant, pretty wide here. Obviously, an offence has been committed. Yeah, it makes sense. It's suspected to have been committed. Well, if there's good suspicion, then a warrant will be issued. I understand that. But C is believed to be intended to be committed. So you can get a search, not you, Mr. Chair, a ruck collector can get a search warrant if he or she believes that an offence is intended to be committed. Again, that's a pretty wide definition, I would have thought. And what it does do is, I would say that this puts a lot of pressure on a defendant, or it puts a lot of, it's a wide scope for any collector, Mr. Chair. All he has or she has to say is, sir, I believe that an offence is intended to be committed. Well, how do you prove that, Mr. Ruck Inspector? I just believe it's intended to be committed because I saw him driving, and I think that that truck's been on the road too many times, and he couldn't have stopped because it's not practically possible for him to have done this.
Tim McIndoe.
I move that the question be now put.
The question is that the question be now put. Those of that opinion will say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Ayes have it. Party votes called for. Ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
57 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
42 opposed.
Green Party.
9 opposed.
Act New Zealand.
5 in favour.
Māori Party.
Toko toru e whakahea ana.
Progressive.
1 opposed.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Mana.
1 opposed.
Members, the ayes are 63, the noes are 56. The question will be put. We have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 287. The question is that the Minister's amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Part 4 is amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Ayes have it. Party votes called for. Ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
57 in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
42 opposed.
Green Party.
9 opposed.
Act New Zealand.
5 in favour.
Māori Party.
Toko toru e whakahea ana.
Progressive.
1 opposed.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Mana.
1 opposed.
Members, the ayes are 63, the noes are 56. Part 4 is amended, will stand part. The question is that Schedule 1 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 2 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. We move to Schedule 3. We have a Minister's typescript amendment on SOP number 287. The question is that the Minister's amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. We have a further amendment as set out on SOP number 287 as amended be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 3 is amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. We now move to debate on clauses 1 and 2. Question is that 1 and 2 stand part. The Honourable Shane Jones.
Tēnā tātou, Mr Chair.